Now, brothers, before we turn to hear our brother Ed Moore on planting churches, trying to be a church planting church, any question about anything that's been brought up today, and you can direct it, as I say, to any of the speakers, and we will quickly supply a microphone for them. Yes, right in the back. If you just go ahead and stand up, Zach, microphone will come to you quickly. And let's go on and get Matt used with the microphone and Caleb used with the microphone. So we'll have 3 questions ready to go. Zach.
Zach Robinson, Harvest Point, Charlestown, West Virginia. My role is...
Zach, I got to ask, is Charlestown, West Virginia different than Charleston, West Virginia?
It is. It's at the other end of the state, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys realized there could be a confusion of names there? I mean,
they probably didn't even know each other at the time.
Okay.
It's pretty far apart.
All right.
I mainly work with youth and young adult is a majority of my role at our church. And with just the younger culture, commitment is in short supply. How do you teach the things that you've been talking about, especially with church commitment with my young adults as well, like they're at that age to start joining the church and voting and being engaged in that? How do you teach that to a culture that has completely kind of abandoned commitment as a whole?
How do you teach commitment in a culture that's abandoned it? Jonathan, you want to say anything? Jonathan, don't do your Jeff Goldblum imitation now, brother. Just stand up and...
All right, it's probably good I can't understand him. I don't know what to say. Where am I looking?
Zach's right back there.
Other than you're obviously using, you have 2 tools as a pastor, right? You have your teaching ministry and you have your membership process. Those are your basic tools. And so you're going to use your 2 tools in that direction. You're going to be teaching what a church is and the value of church membership and these things through the pulpit, through Sunday school, through passing books out, articles out, and so forth. And then you're just going to, as you can, start interviewing people when they come into the church. So if there's not been a practice of church interviews, you can just start having conversations. Let's call it that. The word interview is intimidating. Conversations with people coming into the church, having membership classes, little by little, adding these membership practices to the process and having people sign the statement of faith, sign the church covenant as you're able to practice that. Sometimes, obviously, you get pushback against those things, but I think those are 2 very clear ways to begin setting up expectations of membership. So in our Why Join a Church class, when you join here, you get a 45-minute sermon on why to join a church, and frankly, it's a good talk. It's kind of inspiring even. And I think people come in not knowing why church membership is important, and they hear that and they start to think, it kind of makes sense, right? But if you're not teaching it, you're not going to get anywhere.
So the question is, how do we help young people, this young generation, understand commitment? Charles Edmond is one of the pastors of this church, and one of the things he does is work with young people a lot.
You don't have a mic?
He does. He has one. So brother, what do you do with the 15-year-olds and 20-year-olds? Teach this idea of commitment.
I don't know if this is a good answer or not, but I just try to raise the stakes with young people. They're excitable. They're willing to commit to certain things. You just have to raise the stakes high enough that they want to commit to those stakes. And so I try to put out on the ground level, like, this is what is at stake. This is your, not only your salvation, but the world's salvation. You have the ability to affect the world. And if you can kind of paint this picture in their head about what they're kind of going in for, they're more excited to do it. So if I get the buy-in up front, I'm then able to get them to come in and actually do more stuff on the back end. But it's basically painting a vision, I think. I was painted a vision by people in my life, trying to paint a vision for them so they will fully buy in to the commitment level. Otherwise, if you just got something out there that's run-of-the-mill Christianity, hey, we're going to have a good time, we're going to have a lot of games, we're going to have a good, have a party, or whatever the case may be, you're not going to get much buy-in. However, if you show them the cost is going to be great, but the benefit is even greater than that, and you get a passion stirred within their heart, that's when I think you're going to get the buy-in that you're looking for. It's not hard.
Just to push back, Zach, you run the youth group at your church? I do. Yeah. So Charles does that here. And brother, you have parties. The very simple thing you don't do. That's
I do.
exactly what you do with
Well, my previous ministry, I got rid of parties, though. I got rid of the parties in my previous ministry, but yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, see, I lure them in, and then I hit them. I hit them with a punch, right? Yeah.
And just so you know, at capitolhillbaptist.org, click on resources, click on core seminars, click on membership matters, are the 6 membership classes we have, the manuscripts and the handouts. So that resource is there for you.
Yeah.
Eric Spohr, Centerville Christian Fellowship, which is just outside Dayton, Ohio. My question is maybe somewhat for you, Mark, somewhat for Jonathan. I know recently, Jonathan, you wrote, I think in a mailbag perhaps, about a church, a covenant or statement of faith not being too specific or too narrow, but allowing kind of within conservative, orthodoxy, gospel-centered kinds of things, not necessarily requiring someone to have a certain soteriological view or something like that. And having that, I think you both touched on that. Is there a time or a place in setting apart then for elders or for those who teach a few more things that might be stringent? For example, maybe setting up in a members meeting, hey, this is the statement of faith that you need to affirm and believe, but these are some of the distinctives that we perhaps have, or if you're going to be an elder, we're going to teach from this perspective on soteriology or something like that. You don't have to believe to be a member, but if you're going to teach, or you need to know this is the perspective we're going to teach from.
Eric, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you hear me talk about that in my talk?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in your talk, you said you wouldn't add an extra layer of formal requirements for an elder,
Yeah.
but he's asking, would you go ahead and tell the church, hey, look, the elders here are going to be more reformed in their soteriological perspective, and that's what you're going to hear here, though you are welcome as a member of this church, even if you're not reformed. That's what you're asking. Would you go ahead and articulate that?
So, Eric, does your church have a statement of faith? What is it?
It's an adaptation of the Gospel Coalition Statement of Faith. So it's fairly generous, slightly reformed.
Yeah. Is it work? How long have you had it? Is it working? Is it working pretty well?
Yeah, it works well. But recently we've had some folks who have come in and, the pulpit ministry and all of our teaching, all of our elders, all of our staff are Reformed Baptistic. And so there's a little bit of shock or a little bit of, well, I didn't know that to teach I had to do this or I had to believe this. So why don't we teach from this other perspective or some pushback on that? So we're just trying to think through, is there something we need to communicate ahead of time when people come in for membership saying, this is what you need to affirm to be a member. You don't have to be.
Yeah. Well, Eric, I think that goes back on you, and your elders need to sort of decide to lead the congregation. If you want that statement of faith more specific, then you probably want to openly lead in that, teach that to the congregation, get the congregation to adopt that. If you don't, if as you reflect, you're happy to have this set of problems as opposed to the others that you would get if you narrowed it, then I think you're just then working with the congregation with the statement of faith that you have. No statement of faith is going to be perfect, and every statement of faith will give you certain challenges and opportunities. So I kind of stumbled into this one being the New Hampshire Confession. Jonathan has just improved the New Hampshire Confession, and I'm tempted to grab it and use it, but I'm such the historian, I hate to change something that's worked for 140 years. It just feels like, in my lifetime, I'm the one who saw this better. So, and it's, it's worked well enough.
Too many semicolons.
So what?
Too many semicolons.
The editor. So, brother, any additional wisdom to give here?
It sort of depends on the issue. So if it's a view on the millennium, Mark will teach, he's teaching through Revelation, he'll say his view on the millennium. It's not a requirement for the elders. It's not a requirement for the church. I've done the same thing in a Sunday school class. Complementarianism, little different. You don't have to be a complementarian to be a member of this church, but we will tell people in membership classes, all the elders here are complementarian, and that is what you will hear. You don't have to be a complementarian, but we would expect you not to teach contrary to the elders. Yes.
But it wouldn't feel like that, Eric. We would not think of a brother as an elder if we did not know he understood the Scripture that way. It wouldn't be like, Bob, we'd love to have you, but you just got to knuckle under on this one. It's like, well, no, it's just, we love egalitarian Bob. We're glad he's trusting Jesus. But we're just not going to be asking him to serve a congregation like this as an elder.
So then if you get to soteriology, Calvinism, non-Calvinism, that's got its own nuances. So the answer to your question, I think, is kind of case by case. It depends on the issue.
We're going to give him one more question right over here.
Peter Morris, Iglesia La Gracia in Costa Rica, and sent by Ambassador Bible Church here in Chantilly. This is maybe for anyone who spoke this morning in particular. Really helpful clarity about what is the church, how do we think about the church, those kinds of things. How do we, and I think you touched on it briefly, Mark, but how do we keep that clarity from being a barrier to effective collaboration among churches, so we don't get so caught up in our own polity or theological distinctives such that we don't collaborate well with other churches?
And tell me your name again.
Peter.
Peter, have you heard of the Together for the Gospel conference?
Yes.
T4G? One of the reasons we started that was to fight against the very idea you're assuming. To me, Lausanne Christianity Today, National Association of Evangelicalism, has seemed to assume for 50 years, much to the harm of evangelical Christianity in America, and I would say this is especially prominent in something like Christianity Today, that if you believe something that's not essential for salvation, and you believe the Bible teaches it clearly, and you organize your fellowship even around it, you are by nature divisive and hindering collaboration. I think that's a short path to liberal unbelief, that attitude. I don't like that attitude at all. That's why I like to call myself a fundamentalist, because I think these things are true in the Bible. I think it's important whether or not you believe in the bodily resurrection. I think it's important whether or not you believe in the inerrancy of the Bible. I think it's important whether or not you believe that Jesus is the only way to heaven. I think it's important that you believe that Jesus taught about baptism and the Lord's Supper. Now, the fact that I might trust Bill, who's sitting in the back, as a Presbyterian minister, more than I would trust many Southern Baptist pastors, just says, yeah, in my theological universe, I got a lot of different ideas of different importance, different doctrines. That's not unique to Mark. That's just typical of Christianity. That's what Christians understand. So we're going to have various kinds of things that we will require agreement upon in order to do particular things together. So there's some things we can do in order, say, to have a conference. So I can have a good soteriological conference cooperating with people that I disagree with on other issues, but not soteriology, obviously. Planting a church, I might get on better with our Free Will Baptist brethren than I would with my Presbyterian friend. Because in the form of a church, we might see exactly eye to eye. And everything they're going to say about free will, either everything or much of it, I'm going to appreciate, and say, yes, please bring out the imperatives of the Bible. I'm just going to bring out, and there's this stuff too. When people are all also asking, but how did I make that choice? Well, there's some interesting stuff in here in Acts 11 and Ephesians 2. But because we're going to agree on the form of a church, on membership and discipline, so it just depends on what kind of thing you're talking about together. So the idea that getting clearer on even secondary issues hurts collaboration, I reject as from the pit of hell. That's a simple way. You don't intend that, but that's the simple way for us to be led into more and more doctrinal sort of damping down and indifference. And what I want to do is study the Bible really carefully and fly the colors brightly. And then hopefully part of that will be wisdom from the Lord about seeing what we have in common, valuing what we have in common, particularly that's about salvation.